This is a chilling true mystery, a tale whispered through decades, born in the City of Angels. The events take place in 1947 and the case is called the Black Dahlia's Shadow. Listen carefully. It's the story of a curious girl, her war-scarred father, and a stranger whose rocking chair hid a deadly truth. Dim the lights, lock the doors, and step into the unsolved enigma of the Black Dahlia. The glittering city. Picture Leimert Park, Los Angeles, January 1947. The ghosts clung to the streets. Neon-lit bars clashing with rundown lots, a city of dreams and despair. 10-year-old Margaret lived here with her family in a modest bungalow, dwarfed by a crumbling Victorian house next door. Her father, Daniel, was a former army medic, toughened by battlefields but steady for his kids. Margaret and her brother, Paul. They'd play in the yard, tossing a weathered ball, but Margaret's gaze always drifted to that house. On its warped porch sat a man, rocking day after day in a chair that creaked like a funeral dirge. He never spoke, just watched. The stranger's stare. Margaret felt his eyes, cold, piercing. The man was a specter, lean, hollow-cheeked, cloaked in a dark overcoat that hung like a shroud. He rocked from dawn to dusk, hands clasped tight as if guarding a secret. Daniel noticed too. Maybe it was his medic's instinct for trouble, or a father's quiet vigilance. But one foggy afternoon, he decided to confront the stranger. He told Margaret and Paul to stay put, pulled on his old service jacket, and crossed the patchy yard to the Victorian's porch. The meeting. The man paused mid-rock as Daniel stepped up. "Name's Daniel," he said, voice calm but edged. The stranger tilted his head, eyes glinting, and rasped, "Call me Victor." They sat, Daniel on a cracked stoop, Victor in his chair, and talked. It was small talk at first. The city, the chill. But Victor's tone was off, sharp and probing. Then, he leaned forward, chair groaning, and said, "Want to see something rare?" Daniel's gut tightened, but he'd stitched men back together under fire. He didn't scare easy. "Sure," he replied. Into the house. Victor led Daniel inside. The Victorian was a husk, dust-blanketed broken furniture, wallpaper peeled like dead skin, and the air reeked of mildew and iron. Daniel's boots crunched on grit as they crossed to a cellar door in the hall. Down a splintered staircase they went, into a basement damp with shadows. In the center stood a table, and on it, a tarnished tray with raw meat, dark, glistening, maybe pork. Victor gestured to a stool. They ate in silence, the meat cold and slick. When they finished, Victor piled the bones and smirked. "Something rare now," he said. "The macabre ritual." Daniel's pulse quickened as Victor raised a shaky hand over the tray. The bones twitched, then lifted, floating, spinning in a slow, sickening dance. Daniel froze, air trapped in his chest. The bones swayed, a nightmare ballet, and Victor's voice sliced through. "This power is yours if you sell your soul to the devil." That broke Daniel's trance. He bolted up the stairs, heart slamming, and ran, through the house, out the door, back to safety. He barred the bungalow shut, pale as death, but kept silent that night. The vanishing. Next day, the rocking chair was still. No creak, no Victor. Days stretched. Nothing. The Victorian loomed empty, a silent predator. Daniel couldn't let it go, though. A week later, he returned. Alone. The house was worse. Dust thicker, air heavier. In the basement, the table was gone, but gouged into the concrete was a jagged pentagram, edges stained dark. Then, the horror struck. The body. 2 days later, a scream shattered Leimert Park. On January 15, 1947, a woman found it. A body in a vacant lot near the Victorian. It was Elizabeth Short, a 22-year-old aspiring actress. Pale skin, dark wavy hair, always in black. She was severed at the waist, drained of blood, mutilated with surgical cuts. Her face bore a grotesque smile, slashed ear to ear. Arms bent above her head, legs splayed, she lay posed. No blood on the ground, killed elsewhere and dumped. The town called her the Black Dahlia. The investigation. Daniel stormed the Victorian, but it was barren. No Victor, no traces. He asked neighbors. "Seen that man?" They blinked, puzzled. "No one's lived there since '43, they said. Empty." Police swarmed the lot, searched the house, found the pentagram, but no leads. Hundreds of suspects, false confessions, nothing stuck. Elizabeth's killer slipped away, her murder a black stain on LA's soul. The legacy Daniel never healed. Years later, he'd tell Margaret and Paul, voice low, eyes distant, as if those bones still twirled in his nightmares. The Victorian still stands, they say, rotting in Leimert Park. Some hear that chair creak on foggy nights. Was Victor her killer? A phantom? Something darker? Tell us your theories below. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more mysteries from the shadows. Next time, stay sharp and maybe don't trust the man next door.